Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Gaming Podcast. This is number 19. Once again, I'm Bradley and I'm joined by Stu. How are you doing this week, Stu?
I'm okay at the moment, thanks. It's been a up and down week. I find that things are very heightened, so they're either the highs are high and the lows are low, and both of them are very high or very low. Yeah. But at the moment, I'm feeling good.
Good. Yeah, it's been a weird week. We'll come on to more of it in a bit, but trying to avoid anything political is just nigh on impossible at the moment. And I've not really been playing many games still. I've just not been in the mood for playing many games. But I've got one I've sort of been playing that I will come to because it's been my obsession for the past couple of weeks, actually. But as usual, what have you been playing?
Yeah, I can always rattle on about how much I've been playing for ages, so no worries there. I've been playing a lot of Gears Tactics, which I mentioned a few podcasts ago, and I finally got around to putting some real time into. And it's an XCOM style tactical game. I'm not sure of the proper genre. I never really remember what you call them, but they're kind of like board games where you select a piece. They're allowed to move a set number of places and you move them and then you get to use an action for them. And the fewer movement places you use, the more actions you can use whilst you're there. And the actions are normally either do a buff or do an attack. Everyone who's listening to this probably already knows this stuff, but just in case. And this game is very accessible and based on a franchise that's all about base level dumbness. So it's designed around being crass and stupid and violent in a cartoonish way. And this version, the tactical version, sort of plays to those strengths, really. It's got more thought behind it, obviously, than the regular third-person action game does, but only by a small amount. It's kind of lean. You don't have to think a great deal about which options are available. You sort of stack your character with abilities from a small selection before the confrontation, and each one of them sort of specializes, which is great, which I'll come to in a second. And then you take them out into the battlefield and all sorts of hell breaks loose and you're blowing stuff up, getting blown up, sniping stuff from across the map. Great fun. And yeah, one of the reasons why it works so well is that it embraces that melodrama, crassness, silliness, everything from it's kind of like an 80s action movie, the franchise, and it always has been.
Yeah.
And it just embraces that, doesn't worry about it, doesn't try and do anything clever, doesn't try and subvert it. It's not trying to be ironic. At the same time, it knows what it is, so it's not stupid. The only stupidity in it is very deliberate. And you can tell because layered on top of that is how fantastic it looks and how much effort is put into the presentation and the characterization. And each character is very distinct. And even though they're just archetypes, they are distinct from one another. And put all that together and it makes it a really fun package. So it doesn't break any new ground. And in fact, it takes a couple of steps back from more sophisticated games of its ilk. But that doesn't matter. It's just a laugh and a very attractive one at that.
So as someone who has played XCOM and found themselves in a corner, crying and sweating uncomfortably because it just broke them because they couldn't understand it, but very much enjoyed Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Where does the Gears game come into fit in that spectrum?
That's a great structure to use, actually. It's very close to the Rabbids one, really. It's much closer to that end. A bit more sophistication and a few more options, but not hugely. I think it does what it does well. It kind of copies from that tier of tactical games. So it just goes, okay, so you've got 3 buff style moves that you can do. And apart from that, the tactics come in of, oh, well, when do I activate that? Do I give somebody an extra move now? Or do I save that for 2 moves down the line because it's got a big cooldown? Or do I use a grenade, which will, again, take 5 moves cooldown? Or do I just use this rifle, which doesn't have anywhere near as much damage, but, it's got no cooldown, etc. So very simple things, but several simple things dotted about at the same time, which means that you can combine them in increasingly clever ways. So it doesn't have a vast array of options, but it allows you to do a lot with the small pool that you have. So yeah, more like Rabbids.
Cool. That's sort of thing I'm more likely to try out. It's really weird because I love that genre of games, the turn-based strategy type thing, and I'm just really bad at them. And a lot of them, if you don't get the bits that surround it, you're totally lost. But Rabbids, the Mario Rabbids one, allowed you still just to learn and push through taking the awkward side of it out and making it simple to get through. So I'm glad Gears is more towards that.
Yeah, it's like in that genre, there's often like the equivalent of power creep, which is the longer you go on with something, the more extreme and esoteric, and the more you need to know the lore and the backstory, and you need to gather all this intelligence about what particular actions will actually accomplish, and there are 500 of them to do. And yeah, it sort of jettisons all that and goes, yeah, you've got effectively a club, and you've got an explosive. Go out and have some fun.
Yeah, definitely one I'll look at trying at some point. That's on PC only at the moment, isn't it? But it'll be on Game Pass, I assume.
So it's available on Game Pass for PC and through Steam. PC only at the moment, but with it being on Game Pass, no doubt it will come to the Xbox One soon. And also, it's all based around the controller. I mean, you can use a mouse if you want, but it's pointless because it's designed around a controller. So, like Rabbids, it's got easy inputs, so it's very accessible.
So what I will say, and feel free to cut this out if you get a bit embarrassed, obviously, but thanks to yourself, I can now play PC. So I will give this one a try, see if it can handle it. But it's definitely one I'm interested in, and I will give that one a try.
Yeah, do. I tried it on my older PC, which isn't my gaming one, and it performed really well with the settings set low. So I think it's quite flexible as well. So yeah, give it a go.
Excellent. So I'm going to talk about my probably one and only game at the moment, and it's not a console game. I've kind of downloaded the apps for Android though in the end, but I've been playing a ton of Sudoku. I knew there were different types of Sudoku previously, rather than the classic, just like 1 to 9 in all the different boxes, and you just follow that same rule set. That there's actually various different rule sets attached to Sudoku that make it not always harder, but add a different set of rules to it. And I never entertained it because I thought I'm just not clever enough, even though I can work out logic puzzles really well. I thought I'm not going to be clever enough to do these. And there's these, you got chess Sudoku, which adds in rules, whereas your columns and your rows can't contain the same number. Your 9x9 box can't contain the same number. But also, based on any one number from a knight's move position, that can't also be the same number. There's a king's Sudoku, which means that nothing that can be made in a king's move can then be the same number. And so it adds these restrictions to it, and it makes a really good way of making some logic-based moves to be able to complete the puzzle. It's one of those things that sounds really, really complicated, and I got playing them, and I've just become obsessed. They are just so good to play, and I went back and tried classic Sudoku, and the main problem I had was I kept trying to look for the other restrictions within the game, knowing that I didn't need to worry about them. And I got onto these, and I'm going to plug their channel. There's a channel on YouTube called Cracking the Cryptic. It's hosted by Mark Goodliffe, who I didn't know. Obviously, this one is 12 times winner of the Times Crossword Championship. And Simon Anthony, who is just an expert in Sudoku. I think he's done stuff like Team GB for Sudoku. I didn't know there was something. But the passion that comes from these guys, especially Simon, who I've watched a lot of, is just something wonderful. Watching him go through the logical process of cracking these puzzles, and when he finds things that then take him through a route of like, I'm now just going to go bang, 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 complete this, and just seeing his astonishment at it is just outstanding. And his love for the different crafted puzzles there are, it resonates. And I think we spoke one of our earlier podcasts about people who are passionate about a subject and just how they can make it seem so wonderful and so joyful. That's what Cyberman does for this. It's just, it's only Sudoku, but it's my new, I'm going to say it's my new lockdown obsession.
When you play the more sort of intricate ones, does it make the regular Sudoku feel easier? I.e., has it made you better at the standard version?
If anything, it's made it a bit harder because I'm looking for the one that has the biggest effect is chess Sudoku, because I'm always looking for those knight's moves and king's moves because there's no visual clue on the board, whereas with Thermo and Sandwich, there's visual clues on the board, so you're using those to do it. But with knight Sudoku and king Sudoku, you don't have those visual clues, so you're looking for them while playing those. If you go from that directly back to a classic Sudoku, then that's where you start to go, I'm overcomplicating it, and that can cause some issues. So I'm saying issues like it's a bad thing. I mean, my one suggestion would be if you do play these or you ever want to try these, and that you can get them all on Android, and I'll put a link in descriptions and that, is go from Sandwich or Thermo back to classic. Don't go from chess Sudoku back to classic, because that's the one that will mess with your head a little bit more. And I think I said Sudoku, and every other various pronunciation of that in that description. But yeah, it's great.
Cool.
So what else have you been playing, Stu?
I've also been playing Rigid Force, which you can't even say without laughing. Oh man, I don't know if that was a deliberate thing on the side of the developers or whether it's an unintentional bit of humour, but it sounds like it should be a hentai game. It's not a hentai game, it's a shoot 'em up, an old-fashioned horizontal shoot 'em up, and it's in the style of R-Type. The ship itself is generously, we'll call it an homage to the R9 from the R-Type series, so it looks identical basically. But the game itself has a couple of wrinkles that make it reasonably different from R-Type. It has a system where you grab green dots after destroying an enemy, which fill a bar, and the bar can be used to power a defensive sword, which does like a chalkboard erase of bullets coming towards you, and your super weapon. So that's very straightforward. It's kind of like shoot stuff, collect the stuff using a separate button, and then use it for other stuff. And that's very straightforward. And it also tweaks what you do with the Force, which is the ball of metal and energy that flies in front of your ship in R-Type, where you can position it in various degrees of forward and backwards. So like forward direct, forward spread, mid, backwards spread. So you can cover any angle of your ship, basically, but using a button rather than either turning your ship or physically removing the Force and then locking it to the rear, which you do in R-Type. So it has enough wrinkles for it to be its own game and not just be a blatant copy. The graphics are very sort of simple. They're clean and they're unobtrusive. Some of the colours are nice, but it's very kind of, it's kind of not very exciting to look at.
Yeah.
The structure of the levels is all right. Some of them are more interesting than others. Some of them are a little bit lacking in features, shall we say. And, there's part of the fun of horizontal shooters, and this is sort of the key to them really, is that you're battling the environment as much as you are the enemy. So that's not really the same as a vertical shooter, which is more about huge waves of enemies and huge waves of bullets, especially in bullet hells, and navigating your way through those. There's tends to be less enemy fire in horizontals, and it's balanced between those guys plus the environment that you're trying to navigate your way around, like tunnels and caverns and bases. And it doesn't really have a lot of that going on. It has some huge, great big structures that get in your way, but it's not very nuanced. So it's unsophisticated, but it does what it does very well. It's clean and clear, and you know what's going on. The way that you read the game visually works, and the weapons are quite satisfying. So far, it's good fun.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's one that intrigued me, but again, one of those genres I'm not very good at. Obviously, there are some games I am good at, but it's another one of those where it's just not one I can do justice. But yeah, it did look good, but yeah, the name did get a little childish laugh out of me as well.
Oh, hell yeah, you can't avoid it. You can't avoid the rigid force.
No. But yeah, no, sounds good. And you'll have a review for that one at some point as well, won't we? So
Indeed, yeah, I'll be writing a review for that one.
So keep an eye out for that on the site. So gonna move on from games now because talk a little bit about some mental health stuff because that's what we do. And after last week's, we're gonna keep it a little bit shorter and hopefully a little bit less depressing. I was due to have an op this week on my eye, which ended up getting postponed. But it made me discover something which I didn't realise in that time. Is I actually suffer quite a bit with anxiety as well. Before a couple of weeks ago, I was meant to have laser surgery on my other eye. I don't know if it was the fault of going to a hospital during this time or anything like that. But the morning of the operation, I started vomiting and being sick. So I called the hospital, advised I'd been sick, and obviously said, right, okay, don't come in, we'll reschedule. So did that, and I felt better later in the day. Didn't think much of it. And then yesterday, when I was due to go in, I started feeling really sick. I didn't actually vomit, but it dawned on me that the anxiety coming out. I was speaking to someone. They went, "Yeah, you've got a lot of other issues such as your depression and so on. So anxiety is part of that." And one of those things I've never put two and two together. I realised that I actually suffer from quite bad anxiety with certain things. But yeah, it was coming out in sort of trying to be sick, or not trying to be sick, but feeling physically sick and dealing with it and realising that sort of like became as a huge relief because I didn't know what was wrong with me a lot of times when I was being sick quite often. Or feeling physically sick, quite often. And I thought it was something wrong with me. And it's only now I've realised it's anxiety-based, and that's become quite a relief.
It's always better to know, isn't it? Even if it's knowing something bad, it's better to know where something's coming from. Because even that helps relieve the anxiety to a degree. Well, I find anyway, that it might not make it go away knowing that it's an anxiety, a fear reaction, but just knowing that it isn't something physical that you have absolutely no control over is better to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I say it's just one of those things. I mean, how I'll deal with it, I haven't got a clue at the moment. But it was just sort of like but that slight comfort of knowing, right, I'm not actually physically unwell. It's that is definitely a mental thing. And it really dawned on me because it was the exact same sickness I had when I did vomit the previous time that I was able to sort of suppress it because I don't know how it worked with the hospital. If I had thrown up because it was anxiety induced, do I still need to say I've been sick and I shouldn't come in? Because I know it's not through an illness, it's through the anxiety. So I was glad I was able to suppress it and go in. And it ended up they postponed the op anyway. And they just needed to do scans of my eye and stuff like that instead. But yeah, I didn't know sort of what would have happened if I had thrown up. And then, obviously, they're going to have that on my records, that vomiting when due for an appointment. Does that look like I'm lying or purposely trying to get out of appointments or anything like that? So that all started going around my head, which was fun. But yeah, no, in the end, there was nothing to actually be anxious about because I got told about the operation and the option of being under a general rather than doing an operation on my eye while I'm under local is always good. So that's kind of settled that anxiety down about the upcoming op. But yeah, it was just like really weird, the amount of extra stuff that was flying through my head as well.
It's good that you're in a situation now where you can feel a little bit more comfortable about what's going to happen next. Well, I'm basing that on what you've said. So do you feel more comfortable about the operation now?
The operation itself, yes. The only bit I am concerned about, because I say it gave me the option, we can do it under local or you can do it under, I went, no, I'm doing it under general. I don't like people touching my eyes as it is. The idea of I can't even touch mine, it's a phobia. It's why I don't wear contact lens. So you're like, okay, yeah, we can do it under general, that's not a problem. Just a few days beforehand, though, you will need to come in and we need to do an injection into your eye. Right, okay. Do I? Anyway, yeah, it's not going to be as bad as what it sounds, honestly. It goes and it's over very quickly, but it is something that needs to be done to make the operation sort of like easier to do. So I know I'm going to be dreading that point, but I'm going to just have to be a brave boy and put up with it. But that's the only bit I'm dreading. The actual operation, I don't really mind because I've been under general anaesthetic once when I broke my hip and I needed an operation to repair it. And for what seemed like an hour whilst I was being put under, it was probably only about 30 seconds, I had the most insane, trippy journey I've ever been on in my mind. And if I can revisit that, then yeah, I'm okay being put under for an operation.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
How did you break your hip? That's difficult when you're young.
Playing football.
Ah, right.
It was when we used to live up in Liverpool. We went to play a football game. It was the first football game we played as a team we'd put together in Wigan, near the Wigan Athletics football ground. And it was an all-weather pitch. It'd been raining. I went up to claim a cross, and as I've started to come down, one of my other players has caught me. And instead of coming down feet first, I literally landed horizontally straight on my hip and snapped it in half.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I was fitted on the pitch and all sorts. But yeah, that needed an operation. And the surgeon afterwards said to me, he goes, just to let you know, we had a lot of problem actually screwing in the plate and everything. He goes, because your bones are that strong. He goes, the only time I've seen a break like that is either an old person whose bones are now brittle, or someone who's been in a motorbike accident, that's the force you hit the ground with. Oof. It's like, but yeah, that was the only other operation I've had.
Nice. This is why I never went up for headers. Always a bad idea. Let the tall people do it.
But yeah, no, aside from all of that, it's obviously trying to avoid, not trying to avoid, but trying to sort of move on with life, with everything that's going on at the moment. It's just been insane because there's no break from anything. And it's not a bad thing, I don't think. But at the same time, I'm waking up every morning, checking the news or social media and just going, wow, it's just really not letting up at the moment. How's that affecting you, would you say, at the moment, that stuff?
It is completely weird because, I mean, you can look back to what happened in previous pandemics, and obviously they spread a lot worse in most scenarios because, people were less educated about how they travelled, and also, the medical assistance just wasn't there. But we have an ability now to be at home and isolated, but still in social contact. And that's really great. It's amazing that people can still reach out over such distances and stay in touch. And it does stop you going bananas with loneliness. But at the same time, being unable to, how strong this affects you depends on you personally, but not being able to leave your house without anxiety, to come back to anxiety, without anxiety is a very odd thing. And I mean, I kind of, when I leave the house, it's with a low level anxiety every time now, which of course it never used to be. I never had any problems with that. I'm not agoraphobic or anything. So I, look forward to leaving the house, and now I don't. And that's weird. And that's even just to go around the corner. But to know that you can't travel to see, like my wife's family, she hasn't seen them since all this started, and they live quite a long way off, and things like that. It starts to take a toll after a while, and it's subtle and insidious because nothing bad is happening to you. You're still able to watch the telly and eat your food, and in often cases do your work. But there's a kind of gnawing away at your psyche in the background because you're not doing things that you genuinely enjoy. And you can write some of that off as, selfishness or childishness or whatever, or, being a meat puppet because we're all animals. But some of it is just, it's stuff like going to see things that are beautiful or seeing things that are not in the normal run of reality, like cinema or theatre or anything like that. And the longer it goes on, the more pernicious that effect becomes. So it's kind of interesting on an intellectual level, but it's also a bit worrying. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I get that, and I do. It's one of the things we try to do, just so I could escape the kids a little bit now and again, is we do take an extra trip to the supermarket, just top up a shop. We sort of deliberately don't get everything we need when we do the main shop, and so we can go out and get, because it's the only way we can escape for half an hour to an hour from the kids and give ourselves a bit of sanity. But that, let's say, racks you then with guilt. Again, there's an anxiety about it, going, I'm taking a risk and I can't do the things I would usually do. Say, we would usually now and again go out for a coffee, just come and sit down in a coffee shop for 45 minutes. We can't do that. And even though we're seeing now coffee shops opening, some of the fast food restaurants opening, and things like that, they're not normal. They're not back to normal as such. There's too many restrictions in place for it, so that all does have an effect that you're still not able to go out and do the things you want to do. And even with the shops opening, which I disagree with them being able to open, by the way, but that's a completely different discussion. There's still not a normality about it. You're not able to go in and just peruse the shops, which something I used to like doing, was just go out and just wander around, and you can't do that. And yeah, it's having an effect. But I found now the one thing that has changed, that you used to be able just to escape it all in your mind or on social media or whatever, and see, here's what other people are doing, here's what's going on, some people are going through the same, etc. But obviously, with the way the governments are at the moment, what's happening with Black Lives Matter, there's just no escape from any of it. There's nowhere you can actually turn. As I said, it's now, I can't even turn to video games to escape it properly, because rightly so, there's messages in all of those as well. All the commentary is going on about the movement, and that it's needed. I don't think we should be able to escape it. But from a mental health point of view, that's the thing that's worrying me most. It's starting to weigh on me a bit that I can't escape it. I don't have that immediate escape from things that I did have. And I get why it needs to be like that, but it's worrying me a bit. And I'm trying not to make that sound selfish or wrong.
No, it doesn't sound selfish or wrong. So I think if this happened at a different time, it would have been easier to process psychologically under a less stressful time. But like you say, it's important that it is happening and that we can focus on it as a positive change as well as there being bad things happening.
Yeah, but I don't think we've seen protests to this degree before that have had such an immediate impact. And why it's now having that impact, I think, is due to the fact that everyone's locked down, so you're being forced to see it. And that is meaning that no one can escape the discussion. And that is a good thing. And I completely, anyone needs to see the Twitter for the channel, to see how much we support what's going on. But yeah, there was a day the other day where I needed to escape, and rather than I think I just switched off completely, and then I was left alone with my thoughts. And anyone who suffers with mental health knows that's not a place you often want to be.
Yes, that's what you say. The stress always comes when something is inescapable. And even if you agree with a protest, having that in your conscious mind the entire time isn't healthy. We all need variety. And anything when we're forced to confront something continuously is a negative. It's how torture happens. So, yeah.
It's fun, though. At the same time, though, I can't... Those messages have to be there as well. Yeah. I'm not saying don't put them there. They have to be there because it's the only way you're going to reach people. And it's weaseling out.
It's a paradox, yeah.
Yeah, it's weaseling out the actual racist. the anti-racism opponents, as we've not got to call them now, because we can't call them racists because we're the snowflakes. Really?
Yeah.
So it's weaseling out the actual racists. We know Sainsbury's is a good place to go and shop now because that's going to be free of racists, and you can drink Yorkshire tea because racists aren't drinking that. It's all good. But yeah, it's something that's definitely still carrying on and is going to be there I reckon it could be going on for the remainder of whatever lockdown is.
Oh, easily, yeah. And maybe much longer. We hope that it kicks off a way of reevaluating how the world operates, and how it reveres certain people and others it despises based on their racial profile. So yeah, I really hope that it does carry on for years and becomes more systemic and just a positive story out of something very difficult.
Yeah, and obviously just on a slightly lighter side with all this as well. If 2020 is we are in a computer game or a simulation and someone is just messing around with all the mods to see how much they can break the simulation, the Piers Morgan mod is the one that's confusing me the most because he's just gone from right to left completely. And it's just, you've seen that physical change, and that's broken me more than anything, seeing that I've sat there listening to some of what he's saying and nodding along, going, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Why? That's not right anymore. What?
It has definitely changed that, if he was ever put in a public square in stocks, I would throw, instead of throwing rocks at him, I'd throw rotten tomatoes. So that's definitely made that sort of positive progress.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's really weird when he's on the side of the good. So yeah, but whatever mods they attach next, God knows what's going to happen.
Who can say? It's just we're living in a completely unpredictable age now.
So, going to wrap it up because I'm having messages flung in my face to say that it's time to wrap up because my children are still waiting in the rain. So yeah, usual. From us, you can catch us on Twitter, YouTube for the podcast. The site obviously has all the reviews. Should start getting some more articles with regards to mental health on them. I've got a couple that I've got half written that I'm going to actually push through. Discord is there for anyone that needs it. Chat mental health, chat games, chat anything. It's a community for you. If you want to support us, we are on Patreon and you can get us on Coffee. And it all just helps with server costs and all things like that. But yeah, that's the usual sign off. Until next week, stay safe.